All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, I'm sure that what I'm about to say is going to be considered very controversial, but it is what it is. I really don't give a shit. In my view, just my perspective, one of the great contrivances of this society, one of the biggest lies, is that every person deserves to have the right to choose what occurs in every aspect of their life. When that is just not the case, the vast majority of people, in my view, are sheep, and they have to be told what to do, who to do it with, and how to do it. Those are just the facts of the matter in this and every other functional society. In America, what we're starting to see is that people have been given too many options, particularly in their life choices and in their relationships. Now, as long as people are trained to understand exactly why they're supposed to do what they do and what the thought process should be, then whatever cognitive function they have can come into play, and hopefully they can do things that are not only best for them, but also for the collective. That's how you have a society. But in what we call this society, there are just too many mavericks. There are too many people doing whatever they feel at the moment, and it's leading to a great degradation in this quote-unquote cultural framework, and everyone is just depressed. That's why you have so many people who are on antidepressants. That's why you have so many people having quote-unquote suicidal thoughts. That's why you have so many people who are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, and not just from a tenure in the military or in law enforcement, but just overall life. You cannot depend on the next person because you don't know what they're going to do next, because they don't even know what they're going to do next. They've been given too many options. Now, do I think that people should be treated like dogs or animals? No. They deserve to have the right to choose certain things, but it should be within an overall architecture where they understand that what they do can harm or affect other people based on the foundation of their reasoning. Are they using rationale and logic, or are they just being capricious and whimsical? Why am I saying all this? Because once again, we're going to see a segment on the CBS Morning News pertaining to quote-unquote dating apps. And what's going to be revealed is that many people are finally starting to acknowledge that they've been the beneficiaries of something that's not necessarily beneficial. That being too many options, too many choices, and it's created too much pressure for them and is harming their life. Having a multitude of choices is not always a good thing. If you were given directions on how to get to a destination, would you rather have one street to drive down, or would you rather have to drive through some type of labyrinth? Of course, if you're driving through a labyrinth, there's going to be a greater chance that you're going to get lost. And that's what we see in this society. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
An estimated 25 million American adults use dating apps in the past year. A recent study finds that about 39% of heterosexual couples and about 65% of same-sex couples who met in 2017 did so on the internet.
Now, once again, we see the source for this poll is from Stanford University, which is an illuministic university. What do I mean by that? A lot of the quote-unquote brightest and smartest, the future leaders of the world, are ferried through certain universities. And Stanford University has a very long-standing association with the CIA, particularly through mind control.
Despite that, some experts say these dating apps keep people locked in an endless cycle of matches.
Absolutely, because that dating app just might be a trap. Understand what you're using it for. It's very difficult to take the average person today seriously because most people today do not take themselves seriously. They don't care about what they say. They don't really understand the power of the word. They don't have integrity. So when you decide to go on a dating app, do not enter into that world expecting to find the quote-unquote love of your life, especially you so-called black men, because that's who my channel's for. We have to understand exactly who we're supposed to be looking towards for inspiration. And in a society like this that is Babylonian in nature, it cannot be the woman. The woman, for the most part, is going to be a source of destabilization, especially if you're not careful. You have to love yourself first so that you understand how and who to love appropriately. And that means that you have to know how to slot them. Is the woman that you're dealing with a concubine or a wife? That's the most important question that you're going to have to answer within yourself when you decide to initiate a relationship, quote unquote relationship, with any of these females out here.
Objections, and many end up feeling more disconnected and lonely than before. The new CBSN original.
You know what that is, brothers? You know why people go onto the internet or onto social media trying to find some level of validation? It's because they need to be told what to do. So many females out here are trying to live their life according to whatever happens next because they're not three-dimensional thinkers. In the ancient world, a woman's father told her who she was going to marry. And that's how that's supposed to be right now. So many people are making a big deal about what T.I. is doing, checking for his daughter's virginity every year. He has that right. He's supposed to be doing that. But because in this society they hate men and they hate fatherhood so much, they want to use that story as a method to condition all men to understand once again that you have no authority over your child. If men were in control of who their daughters were marrying, you would see the success rate of marriage skyrocket, because women have no idea what a good husband is. They have no idea what a good man is at all whatsoever. They're deciding to get impregnated by a man based on what his eye color is, or how many tattoos he has, or how much every other woman wants him. Reasoning parameters that are not going to have any long-lasting effect in a quote-unquote marriage.
Documentary, we're calling it Speaking Frankly, Dating Apps, looks at the benefits and the downsides of technology-driven courtship. Here's an episode.
Damn, Gail, you can't even spit it out, huh? Every time the topic is about relationships, Gail King just starts to lose her mind.
The more that you say that you're interested in a person and you hear back that that same person is interested in you, that can be a little bit of a rush and a reward that kind of makes you want to continue using that app.
Right, but what does that even mean? That someone is interested in you. They're not interested in you, they're interested in your profile. They find your face attractive. The supposed interest that you allege to have, they act like they agree with. Why is that? Because most people are lonely. The woman, just in general, has been given way too many avenues to express herself. And that's why you see that there's so much contention within the household between the man and the woman. Most women do not even know how to share a household with a man. So that's what leads to a lot of the back and forth, number one, because they're both trying to be the head of the household. So that's why my channel is always based on the perspective of a man and what I believe we should be trying to look for in a relationship based on the concepts and the precepts of the scriptures. Because at the end of the day, if the woman that you're with is not as concerned with your peace of mind as you are, the relationship is not going to last. It is not going to last. And many males today are trapped in quote unquote marriages because they were never instructed on the true ins and outs of the nature of the woman. So they're made to believe that even though what they've subjected themselves to is dysfunctional, I have to last it out to make it work because I've already made this commitment. And the woman does not care about those type of things for the most part. Are there exceptions to the rule? Sure. But for the most part, the woman does not accept the concept of her word being her bond. Now, some of them will hold to great esteem their signature on that marriage contract, but many of them don't even do that. I'm sure that there are a multitude of cats who are on my channel who can deliver stories of so-called married women in their corporate offices who are flirting with every man who is there, because most of these modern day females do not have any respect for manhood. So you can go on every dating app that you want. Does the woman that you're dealing with or that you're quote unquote courting, does she respect you as a man?
The times I was constantly checking my notifications every time I would try to do homework or something, and once I hear the sound, I would constantly look at my phone, see who messaged me, see who responded. Even times when I was trying to go to sleep, I was constantly looking or seeing if somebody messaged me back or who messaged me or what message did I receive.
I think part of the game is trying to figure out what the other person wants.
Now, brothers, did you hear how this female described the overall dynamic of the social media app or the quote unquote dating app? She said part of the game is figuring out what the other person wants. I hope that you brothers heard that, because during the early stages of quote unquote dating, the woman is playing a character. You understand that? Her job is to act as if she agrees with everything that you say and that your interests are her interests and that she's amenable to changing herself. The woman is not amenable to changing herself at all, because in this society, she's being taught to worship herself. So that's why she described it as a game. The goal is to trick you. The only way that you can have a society of fruitful marriages is if both parties, both the male and the female, are raised from their youth to embrace their gender role. This society has sworn off gender roles. So that means that you just have two people in a house, combative with one another, trying to figure out who's going to be supreme over the other.
And then that's when you win. It's when the person says, like, yes, I see what you're selling me and I want it.
Once again, you see that she's conducting herself as a quote unquote saleswoman. She said that's when you quote unquote win. That's what it's about with them. It's mostly a game.
from some of my friends who use dating apps that they are exhausted. They find the process to be very time consuming.
The reason why so many of your quote unquote friends are exhausted is because they're not willing to do their job. When you're willing to do your job, you'll find that there's a great relaxation. If you enter into any sphere, whether it's the sports world or the job market or relationships, and you're not willing to do your job, there are going to be issues, and none of us are perfect. We know what our jobs are. If we fall short in some way, if our partner reminds us in a kind way or in a good way, then it's up to us to get back on our job and on our game. But for example, if you watch a basketball team, one of the main ways that you can tell when a team is going to be successful is when everyone knows their role and does their job. If Danny Green wants to bring the basketball up and dominate the offense, the Lakers are not going to win. They know that the offense runs through LeBron and through Anthony Davis. That's how their squad is going to be successful. In a union between a man and a woman, once again, the man has to be the person who is establishing the overall framework of what the family unit is going to be. The woman has to look at him as the person who has the last say. If she does not view him in that way, there's not going to be any respect there. It's not going to work in the long run because it's going to be a constant tug of war, a constant pull and push between the two parties to see who's going to have the ability to have the final say, who's going to be the quote-unquote president within the household. And you can't have that.
Not as enjoyable as one would hope.
So I think part of the burnout just comes from being...
Part of the burnout comes from you being disingenuous. If you're being sincere, you don't get burnt out. Once again, brothers, that's why relationships don't last, because these people are playing characters. She said part of the burnout. In other words, they get tired of acting. The woman, by her nature, is an actress. That's why I've stated in previous videos, every year at the Oscars, when they give out the award for Best Actress in a major motion picture, that Oscar should just go to women. They should just say, for the 88th consecutive year, we're giving this Best Actress Oscar to all women.
By choices, having too many opportunities, not actually meeting up with people, and engaging with our phones more so than with each other.
There's a problem that social scientists have named the paradox of choice, and that is that we think having lots of choices would be amazing and get us exactly what we want. But it turns out, in many things, the more choices we have, the more miserable we become. Well,
the more miserable people become who were never meant to have those choices in the first place. Because every person is not created equally. And that's why I've stated, a lot of people might have a hard time grasping this, but people can learn to love one another. That's why the arranged marriage archetype that you see over in the Middle East and in other parts of the world, that's why for the most part it works very well. The media tries to demonize it, and they want to highlight situations where women are getting killed and so on and so forth. But I've stated this in other videos. Compare the amount of women who are getting killed in the arranged marriage dynamic that you see overseas to the amount of women who are getting killed here in the Americas and in other westernized countries because she decided that she wanted to play with the mind of some guy and he snapped and decided that he was going to take her life. Or compare that to the amount of unborn fetuses that are being killed every year in America or in westernized countries because the woman decides that she's going to have sex with 2 or 3 different dudes at the same time, got pregnant by one of them, does not know who it was, so she has to quote unquote abort the child.
We're excited about someone, and then we swipe, and there's another amazing person who appears.
No, not another amazing person. Another amazing face. And that's another thing, bro. These so-called dating apps, these women are using witchcraft, known as very high-level makeup techniques on their face. A lot of these broads look like shit in real life. No disrespect.
Mistake, which is that too many people think of the faces on their screen as options. The truth is, you're not an option until you show up for the date and express interest in someone.
Well, actually, they're not an option until they show that they're mentally stable.
Most of the time, you're just
which most people are not. Let me wind this guy back a little bit.
And that is that we think having lots of choices would be amazing and get us exactly what we want. But it turns out, in many things, the more choices we have, the more miserable we become.
Hey, brothers, many people have ruined their lives because they were quote-unquote happily married, but they just happen to run into someone in the workplace or in transit to their workplace or at the gym or wherever who they decided to seduce them, and it ended up ruining something that they had that was solid in the home. So options are not always good.
Excited about someone,
and that's male and female. That's why I always state that yes, a man can have more than one woman, but always understand the possible repercussions and ramifications of that. If you're dealing with a woman who is wife material, which is extremely rare in this society, meaning what? Loyal and is concerned with your peace of mind, your well-being, and understands that it's really her focus to make you happy, and she decides that she does not want you to have another woman, it's up to you to discern and decide what you're going to do from there. But you always have to grasp that your choices are going to have offshoots. They're going to have consequences. So whatever you decide to do, just do it based on that understanding.
And there's another amazing person who appears. We make a mistake, which is that too many people think of the faces on their screen as options. The truth is, you're not an option until you show up for the date and express interest in someone. Basically, most of the time, you're just a bubble on a screen.
The executive producer of CBS and Originals, that's Adam Yamaguchi, joins us now. I love everything that they said right there. Why is it making us more lonely to have all these options?
Because most people are too dumb to make their own decisions. And once again, I'm sure that that's going to be considered quote-unquote controversial, but it's just the truth. Most people in this society don't know how to think. They don't know what they should want, because based on what you want, that's going to determine how your life turns out. It's going to determine how quote-unquote happy you're going to make yourself. It's like if someone decides that every day they want to have ice cream for dinner, as opposed to someone who wants to have a balanced meal for dinner, that's going to affect your health down the line. So just because you have the option to eat what you want does not mean that you're responsible in eating what you want. You might end up in the hospital, you might end up having a heart attack, things of that nature.
Aside from the paradox of choice, or the paralysis of choice, that many people face, is this phenomenon of de-individuation. And the expert sort of alluded to it on camera.
De-individuation?
De-individuation. So when you're on your phone, you are shielded by your screen. Yeah. Your avatar is your proxy, and there's a veil of anonymity. So people are likely to engage in behaviors that they might not in real life. Yeah. And we see this across social media. This isn't just a dating apps phenomenon. Yeah. And so over time, you begin to treat other people not as people, but as objects or as options.
It becomes almost like a video game for people.
Absolutely.
Well, of course, that's true, but people tend to objectify themselves. This notion that he's touching on of people treating other people as objects, well, what do you expect when someone depicts themselves with a full face of makeup, dressed scantily clad? They're objectifying themselves, but they can't say that on television because that will be an attack against the quote-unquote divine feminine. So what most of these segments are about are the after effects of mankind choosing their own sense of reasoning or their own decision making, as opposed to what the Most High already stipulated. And of course, people are starting to suffer because of it. That's why, once again, so-called black men, understand your worth, understand what the repercussions are going to be for your choices. Because when these women decide that they're going to up and leave or move on to somebody else, or quote unquote be single, or whatever it is that they decide to do, you're still going to have to keep living your life. You can't hold on to something that does not want to be with you. That's why we have to have our eyes upward towards the Most High and His Son, as opposed to downward with these Babylonian women. And when you have that mentality, you have a far greater understanding of how to scrutinize the females that approach you.
Absolutely. And before you know it, you're mindlessly treating it like a video game, and you're swiping away. And what's interesting is that a lot of these apps they've been built from the ground up to feel like a game. The color schemes, the graphics, the sounds that come in when someone shows an interest in you is gratifying. You were talking earlier about Instagram and the sort of gratification that comes with likes. Well, it's very similar on dating apps.
So how do you make it positive, Adam?
Well, I think one of the things is,
What does that question even mean? How do you make it positive? In life, we're going to have to deal with positives and negatives. We're going to have to deal with acceptance and rejection. It's called being an adult. So everything in life is not always going to be positive. When we encounter negativity, we have to know how to deal with it. Is it negativity that is beneficial for us, or is it negativity that is detrimental to us? All negativity is not bad. Sometimes we become the recipients of negative energy so that we can ascend to a higher level of comprehension. If people are always telling you good things and always acting as if they like you, it puts you in a false state of being. It stops you from scrutinizing yourself. Sometimes a woman turns you down because you don't have your shit together. Why should a woman want to be with you and you don't have an income coming in? You don't know how to treat yourself, meaning your hygiene is not up to par. You don't dress well enough. Not just talking about name brand clothes or high priced clothes, but you're walking out the house with dirty clothes on or not ironed. So when people reject you because of those things, they're letting you know to get better.
So people can burn out. But experts say, look, you're on a dating app for a reason. You've lost sight of what your goal is. But if your goal is to meet somebody, there are tried and true practices of courtship. Go back to those.
Right, but what does that really mean? There are tried and true practices of courtship. Go back to those. In the ancient world, you courted a woman who was a virgin. Can you tell the woman that she's supposed to be a virgin today before you court her? Or do women do what they normally do, which is pick and choose what traditional values and rituals they want to adhere to, and then leave the rest because they don't fit into her sense of self-worship and narcissism? You'll notice that women love using words like courting and courtship and marriage because it suits them. But when it's time for them to go through a quote-unquote whole phase, then that's fine for them as well. So if we're going to go back to traditional standards of conduct, then it has to be the whole way.
People like people.
I like that. Thanks very much.
like
You
that.
can stream the CBS.
Yeah, of course you like that, Gail King, because you're lonely as hell. You can't even get an alert on a damn dating app. But anyway, brothers, once again, that dating app just might be a trap. Everything that we encounter in this life that we live is to be used and not abused. I don't make videos to tell brothers what to do. I just state my perspective. At the end of the day, you can only take someone as seriously as they take themselves. But the most important person for us to take seriously is ourselves, and understand where our mind is supposed to be. That's what's going to keep us stable. That's what's going to help us augment our wisdom so that we can make the right decisions. A lot of these people out here, they're never going to get it. They just talk shit all damn day. But anyway, peace.